How do actors get in the room? I think work gets work.
Really busting your ass trying to have creative control and maintain that. You know you've done good work. Like, you are proud of your work.
I think also the people that you surround yourself with are very important.
Hello, Danny from Actors Coaching International in the US.
Hello, Daniel from Actors Coaching International in the UK.
So, Danny, what classes does ACI provide?
I'm so pleased you asked that, Daniel. We provide weekly core acting classes.
Online and in person.
We run self-tape classes,
Casting director workshops.
audition-ready classes,
Industry professional workshops with award-winning directors.
script analysis sessions.
Intensive 2-day acting workshops.
Why not go to actorscoachinginternational.com to find out more?
Psinakis Kevin Ignatius, the duo from 418 Films. You're in the room with me today. How are you both?
We're doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. A bit later in the day here than it is for you guys. What time is it where you guys are?
We're on the East Coast at the moment, 2 p.m.
Yeah, I can't go back and do that afternoon again. I've had a long afternoon. So it's nice to have worked a long day and to get to chat to you guys in the evening here. It's really awesome. So it's great to be talking to these guys. So a mutual friend of ours, Dominique, who was on our previous series here in the room, set us up sort of podcast online speed dating vibes to get an interview here. So it's really great. Yes. And it's great to have a chat with you guys. And we always ask the biggest question first. It's the one that gets the most varied answers. And tell us, how do actors get in the room?
Want to take it?
No, go ahead, buddy. You can take that.
How do actors get in the room? I think work gets work. I think we've always been kind of do-it-yourself, kind of indie guerrilla filmmakers. We both started as actors, have acted, continue to act, but I think we're very much work gets work. So we're big kind of supporters of making your own stuff, whether that's putting up a play, making a short film, getting friends together, and kind of not waiting around for auditions or somebody else to kind of give you opportunities. So I think, yeah, making your own stuff.
So I absolutely agree. It's just really busting your ass trying to have creative control and maintain that, is important for us, and continuing to put out project after project, because you get better every time as well. Just like, anything, any piece of artistry, you're going to get better as you continue to do it and craft it. So
awesome. Sort of as a side note on that, I think that once you've sort of, want of a better term, made it, I think looking back, it makes all the sacrifices worth it because you got there. But I guess when you're at the start of your careers, and people often tell people, well, you just got to go and work. And I think sometimes people have a mental mindset of, what am I trying to ask? I guess it's that when you were at that beginning point in your career, did you kind of have a deep sense of, if I do make my own work, I know one way or another I'm going to get there? Or did you have the doubts and continue to work through it? Or did you start like you really thought you were going to get there, have the doubts and overcome them? Really complex question, but I hope you understood my point.
No, as soon as I heard doubts, I was like, no, we doubt everything still today. But
I don't know if it ever goes away. I mean, you hear, people even at the highest level of the artistry, the industry, and they still say that they feel like they might never make another film. They have their own doubts. They show up to set, and they're still sick to their stomach and nervous and all that stuff. So I'm not sure it always goes away. I think, hopefully, I guess you feel a little bit more comfortable the more you do it, and you kind of gain confidence, but I don't know if it ever goes away, I mean,
yeah, we constantly are saying, is this shit? Is this absolute shit?
Yeah.
And then we feel good the next day. And then we go the next day, and then we feel like shit again. And then we go the next day. But you've done good work. Like, you are proud of your work, but that doubt factor kicks in so much. And that's what I think actually fires you it keeps you fired up, to keep working as hard. Like you said, I mean, you're working, if you're editing the podcast or you're doing it, my God, you're trying to refine everything and make sure you're putting out good stuff, the best you can do. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I still think it's shit. It's all good. I'm exactly the same. But yeah, let's take it back a little bit. So we always want to know about the beginning of our guests' careers. What brought you both to initially working in this industry?
Go ahead, Nick, because we met in New York, but I'll let you tell that story. You seem to tell it well.
Yeah, we met in New York, oddly, in an acting class, and Kevin was getting ready to go out to Los Angeles, and I always wanted to move to Los Angeles, and I was in New York, and I'm from New York, so it was a hard move that took me a little while to finally do it. But I don't know, I was always fascinated by movies. I was always fascinated by art, storytelling, theater. I just never knew anybody that did it for a living. It was a very foreign, kind of distant kind of career as far as like being, quote unquote, real in a way. That was something that was attainable that you could do for a living. So I don't know. I just always loved movies. I really loved movies, even as a kid. My great grandfather was a painter. So I don't know. I just wanted to like what I did for a living, I guess. And that's what initially drew me into it.
And then we met in New York. Then he came out to LA, did the old crash on the couch. How many months?
I think it ended up being 2 months.
2 months on my
Kevin
couch.
and his poor wife were housing me for 2 months on the couch in LA. Yeah,
but he was great. He cooked breakfast. I mean, we were up. He'd have breakfast made for us, and no. But we and Nick and I started just really trying to put together at that point. And once we were together in LA, we had made one film in New York that Nick had produced. It was a short. Oh my God, it was shot on. Remember DV?
I do actually.
So it was shot on that. But anyway, we did that. We learned. I mean, again, you do shit work for, we tried our best, learning. Yeah. And then as soon as he got out to LA, what was our first we were just trying to like figure it out.
Right? Like comedy sketches,
Comedy sketches.
We were kind of doing the like jack of all trades thing even then. We were acting, and then we were like writing, and also like essentially producing our own kind of sketches and stuff. And that's kind of how we started, just doing like a little of everything. It was when Funny or Die was like kind of popular, that website, and somewhat exclusive. And yeah, I think
we did a couple of those that were fun. And then that got us into kind of pitching TV, and we did that for quite a bit of time and just kept writing scripts and, trying to, that was a long period where we were pitching and development with certain show concepts and, that whole gamut, which is, which sort of frustrated us in many ways too, to want to just, kind of drove us eventually to realize that like we need to just make our own films, which, short films, feature films, that kind of pushed us into that, because you can get lost in development hell in LA and, kind of just pitching TV and waiting for meetings. And
I mean, there's almost a more like all areas of this industry are really, really tough at times. Doesn't matter what country you're in, where you're from, what stage of your career, there's always going to be sort of mountains to climb. But there's something about LA that seems to me to be extra brutal, something out there in the States that you guys have as well. And I think it's something that a lot of UK actors can learn from creatives in the States that have an almost unbeatable arrogance in some ways, in the right way, in the sense of, no, this is my time, I'm going to do this. There's a real, because British people I often find are too polite to their own detriment in this industry sometimes. Like, I think we're people pleasers, not everyone, but I think sometimes we get in our own way. And the way you were saying, we just made comedy sketches, we pitched films, we were doing this. And sometimes I think British people are almost waiting for permission to do that, right? Yeah. And it's really interesting that you guys just went, fuck it, we're going to do it. I'd love to know a little bit about the really nice coincidence that led to the inspiration for your film company name, 418 Films.
Yeah.
So, like Kevin said, I lived on his couch for a couple of months when I first moved to LA, and I want to say I was there probably a year, but basically we both have the same birthday, which is April 18th, 418, and we really didn't know it for a while. I'm almost certain that it was like a Wednesday, and we were like, what are we doing Friday? Do you want to do something? And Kev was like, oh, it's my birthday. I'm like, wait, it's my birthday too. And like literally that's how we realized we had the same birthday. It was probably over a year we had known and been working and living together. So yeah, 418 is both our birthdays, different years, but same date. And yeah, so that kind of became our production company.
I mean, did you end up making him a really nice birthday breakfast when you found out it was his birthday?
I had to do something, but and some dinners too. Don't cut it short with the breakfast.
Yeah, what did you do? You did like a marsala.
Yeah, I'm Italian, so I probably did some Italian, some pasta and some chicken parm and all those staples.
I'm just reliving it in my mind, just like us in there.
It's so sad.
Carrying on with 418 Films. So it says on your website that you are a production company committed to conceptualizing and developing low-cost, high-quality, independently produced films. Now, I think all of our listeners would want to know, how do you make high quality on low cost?
That is the secret sauce, right?
I mean, I could start by, again, we kind of go backwards to making all those we say shit projects and learning and cutting our teeth, learning post-production, learning, I'm a musician too, as well. I compose for all our films, and Nick is an editor by trade. We kind of come together really well because I do, with our stuff, and I'm going to kind of fast forward into when we reach post on these projects, we bring a lot to the table for creatively, especially from editing, sound design, all that stuff. We're not kind of having to go through an editor, then get back and try to, communicate that way. Nick is editing. He sends me stuff. He retransfers me a cut. I immediately add sound design and score. We look at the cut again. We kind of, we have a great kind of back and forth. And A, it cuts costs. So there's your low cost. And B, we certainly pride ourselves on having a lot of integrity in what we're trying to achieve, so.
I think especially now, kind of got to be a jack of all trades in a lot of ways. I think also the people that you surround yourself with are very important. Sometimes that takes some time to kind of find the right collaborators. But as far as cutting costs and keeping the quality high, part of that I think is, that we do multiple things. We're very involved in post, like Kevin said, as well as when we're on set. And that has, that's kind of served us well. We also kind of do tend to reverse engineer some scripts, meaning, what do we have, what resources do we have at our disposal, whether that's locations or equipment, gear, actors, people, and kind of reverse the story in a way. It's a long way of saying we're not writing helicopter scenes. We try to not take on things that we can't financially do, right. And we try to, be careful with that to try to, keep the quality and the integrity of the project high. I think also, just like Kevin said, we've been just doing it a lot, for a long time. And everybody says, like, get all those bad ones out of your system. You got to just get them over with, So yeah, I think it's script, resources, taking on, a couple of roles, having a good team around you.
Our team is huge too, right? That we've kind of with this film Cheat, we just have done. Our team is great. We felt like, okay, we have our team, officially at this point. We felt that way. So
it might not be the best way, but a lot of times Kevin and I won't pay ourselves up front, and we'll kind of take that on as being, the owners of the company, and then taking back end points and stuff like that. Which again, like, you can only do that so much. But again, for people starting out, you kind of bet on yourself a little bit. So
yeah, absolutely. I really like what you said about you reverse engineer scripts. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's almost, looking in your toy box as a kid and seeing what you've got to make a story as a kid when you're playing with your toys, right? Do you almost find the limitations of what you have available freeing in a way, because it at least puts you on a path?
Yeah, and I think it almost, like, a lot of people say it could make you more creative because it really makes you think and work to kind of problem solve, because you don't have any idea at your disposal as far as resources, So it does kind of force you, to free you up, but also be like creative, to kind of figure out how to make it work with what you have. And sometimes that will push you in a direction that creatively is something you might not have thought of, but turns out to be better than you intended in a way.
Hi, we're selftape.co.uk, but don't forget the hyphen. That's self-tape.co.uk. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's a mouthful worth chewing on. Anyway, as the name suggests, we do self-tapes for actors in London. Maybe you've run out of time. Maybe you have kids. Perhaps you can't find a reader. Or, let's face it, you could just be a little bit at setting everything up. Well, that's where we come in. But it's not all we offer. No, we also shoot showreels for actors too. Custom showreel scenes shot from scratch to show casting directors and agents exactly what you can do. Well, that is, if they can be bothered to watch. Any In The Room listeners get 10% off all of our services just by quoting In The Room. So get in touch and visit www.selftape.co.uk. Or don't, it's completely up to you. But whatever you do, don't forget the hyphen, you get it.
I'm interested to know where your sort of, I call people sort of multi-hyphenate creatives if they do more than one thing, if they act, direct, write. And I know we're going to probably get onto another aspect of that quite soon in the conversation. I feel like those individuals are the future of our industry, and that actually some people don't realize they should be doing that until they've gone through drama school, got their acting degree. Even if they're doing all right, I think they then go, oh shit, I need to be doing so much more. I could be doing so much more. And even the most successful actors in the world are then, they're wanting to direct, they're wanting to do their film companies, exec produce, all these sorts of things like that. For you guys, it's like a what came first, chicken or the egg thing, really. For you, Kevin, in terms of, were you composing coincidentally before you got into films in another aspect? And then Nick, were you editing before you wanted to do directing in films? Sort of what came first, and then what made you realize you had to or wanted to do some of the other skill sets?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up as a musician, at heart. I was always making home movies too. I mean, with my dad's camcorder. We were always making movies, and then we would do the 2 VCRs and edit and put music to it and stuff. But just a musician at heart for sure. I grew up, my whole family's in music, and I studied jazz in college and all jazz drumming, and it's just in me. I play and kind of span genres, growing up, from punk rock to whatever, bluegrass to whatever, rock, obviously, and funk and electronics, heavy into electronic music now, obviously. But I think once I was like, I'm going to go to acting school in New York. And then I went, and when Nick and I started creating on our own, I always enjoyed, obviously, was inspired by scores and films and all that. But when we started creating our own stuff, it was just like, I'm going to start figuring this out and do this. You know what I mean? Obviously it was Pro Tools at the time and some native instrument stuff. But I just, at that point, I knew I was going to take control of that for he and I, you know what I mean? And say, I'm going to score everything for us. You know what I mean? And as he was editing for us, it was, and again, that synergy is just, it's so valuable. That really, really was sort of that moment. I think it was, I don't know what was our first, what was our first project? Was it Royal Records? It wasn't that, was it?
No, I think it was the Funny or Die. So we
Funny or
did
Die
two
sketches,
Funny or Die sketches, yeah. We did one with Shannon Elizabeth and one with Rex Lee, who played Lloyd on Entourage.
Mm-hmm.
And those two, we were heavily involved in the post on those.
Yeah.
We wrote it, we acted in it, we produced it. So those were the ones, I think, first that we really were kind of doing everything on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In terms of editing for you, Nick, what brought you there? Because I do very, very minor audio editing for sort of this, and I've done a few little YouTube bits and bobs in the day, and that's more than enough to break my skull in half. So
oh yeah.
When did you decide to go down that path?
In tier with when we started doing these sketches. When I was in New York before I went to LA with Kevin, I was doing kind of the rat race and trying to get my SAG card. And I was actually doing extra work trying to get my SAG card, and ended up in a bunch of digital shorts on SNL. And at the time it was Andy Samberg and his Lonely Island team. And watching them, I was like, there's 3 best friends. They all write, direct, act, edit. They just make their own stuff, and they're doing it on this large scale, obviously. But I was like, that's what I want to do. I was like, I want to make stuff with my friends, And then it really started out of necessity, to be honest, to save money, but also, there's definitely a creative element that you kind of keep, your hand on, keeping it close to the chest. And then also all those things with having multiple roles, it's one less layer of kind of communication in a way that could be timely, and time costs money, right? So if it's Kevin and I sitting editing versus sending it to an editor sending it back, us sending notes, us sitting with the editor, all that's time and money. So yeah, definitely started as a necessity. I think it helps us now more so because I tell young filmmakers, if they ask me, that they should learn how to edit, because I think it helps you become a better director too.
Mm-hmm.
So you really realize what you need and what you don't.
You exactly said it there. You can think ahead of what the editor's going to see, or you're going to see with the editor, and you know what shots you need. Are you sure you need a few more of those? Yeah, we definitely need a few more of those. Yeah. Do you want to put a bit of a funky angle on this one just so that we have it because that's our style? And yeah, I 100% see that. That's really interesting.
It's Kevin and I, so it's not 3 more potential layers of communication to get that message across in a way.
I bet you have a certain flavor, right, between you guys. I mean, you mentioned the Lonely Island guys, and they sort of blew up right when I was a teenager. All those amazing songs that were coming out were just, they were just for a teenage boy at school, right? It was right up my street.
You're cracking up.
They had such a distinct sound.
Yeah.
Do you think you guys, because it's you two, and you've developed a bigger team now, do you think that you guys have an almost distinct nature to your work because it's 2 really close mates?
I think so, absolutely. We tend to get nostalgic in our style, our sort of shtick, you could say. But yeah, we tend to go that route, and from lens choice to kind of kept it a little more of a vintage feel to our films, you know what I mean? From maybe that it would be era of, 80s or 70s or so, you know what I mean? So down to the scores too, the scores are pretty heavy synth score on most of it, you know what I mean? But it's kind of fun. It's a good mix, so.
Yeah, because also we're such good friends, we're very transparent with one another. We don't really have egos. And we also have very similar tastes and stuff, which is really important, I think. And I'm sure that there's some style that we maybe aren't even conscious of that we're creating.
I don't think we're conscious of it, but
yeah. I think we definitely probably lean towards certain things, with or without knowing, maybe in some regards, but similar ages, similar upbringings, I think similar tastes in movies. I'm sure that all kind of plays into it.
When you talk about conviction of our creative process, it's like we do know, as much as we doubt, as we were talking earlier, we do have conviction in what we want. You know what I mean? And if it's shot making, we're very like precise with what we want. We are so planned before, where these are the shots we want and this is what we're going to try to execute. You know what I mean? So that conviction, I think, matters, where we're not kind of wishy-washy and, well, do we, and then we're on set and we're not sure. It's usually, we're pretty damn sure what we're doing. And that's important because it saves, again, like Nick said, it saves time, it saves money. So to have that conviction with shot making and have that conviction with performance.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about quite a few of the pros of having that creative control that you both have. And I mean, I guess cons is the wrong word, but what are the sort of hurdles that you two have found you've had to overcome because you do so much of it and you've had so much creative control? Is there anything that through the years you found quite difficult and overcome, or stuff that you still to this day find more difficult than maybe if you had other people involved? I'm just curious. Or maybe it is all, sunshine and rainbows. I don't know.
We both pause. Nick, you there? Did we lose him?
We might have lost him for a second.
No, it's not all sunshine. Unicorns.
Well, clearly, Nick's just done a runner. It's not sunshine and rainbows.
You just fucking malfunctioned. You just literally broke him. Would you reframe that real quick, man, what the question was?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's sort of like, we spoke about...
My two daughters are walking by. That's why I was...
They can keep walking. It's all good. We're easy breezy. It's sort of, what are the hurdles sometimes when you have all that creative control in the work? We've spoken about the fact that you like the control. It means you go for a good style. You can cut costs and still be effective. Is there anything that you found through the projects that is actually, it's worth the pain of it, but can sometimes be something you have to overcome because you've got all that creative control?
This is the thing that this sums up. The time put in is insane. Because we're not just showing up as like another production where it's like, okay, well, I got to go look at the edit today, and I'm gonna go sit with the, obviously we sit with our engineer and the mixing engineer. But for example, I'm building out all the sound design in our film. So basically, the way we do it is I build out the entire session that I will hand off to our mixer in LA, our post mixer. So I build out everything in Pro Tools, the score, all the sound design. I do a quick edit of dialogue, everything. So I cut all those costs of having someone do all that. Then I send it off to LA while Nick is obviously dealing with the editing, doing what effects he can do. And then we have an After Effects, obviously a VFX guy that we work with. But that stuff's so, you can imagine it's so time consuming. I mean, those are tough hurdles because you're putting the blood, sweat into it. But for some reason, I think we're just so sick that it's just, I don't know if it's masochism or something, but we love doing it. And it seems like that is the most hurdle, is that time, you know what I mean? Because you're doing all that aspect of it. You're not, handing it off to somebody to do and then catching up with them on it and giving notes, if that makes sense.
It 100% does.
Yeah. So I would say that's it. Like, is that sort of the blood, sweat, tears aspect of handling all the post, and the many hats are tough. We shoot all our films. We have been, at least the last two, in my small town in Pennsylvania, because I have able to use the resources. Again, reverse engineering. We write for locations here. I go around and we basically create story around locations I find around here. So it's like, there's that aspect of handling liaison and the producer hat, the director hat, all the hats, like Nick and I share both of those. I mean, we've had nights where it's late night. What's fun about this, and our actors will say, the most fun about our projects is the end of the day, because Nick and I are very precise in what we want, and we move on. When we know we got it, we move on. We don't do 70 takes. We're done. Our days aren't too crazy. And at the end of the day, we all sit together and we have a glass of wine in my house, and we all talk, and we're all that's how every day ended on Cheat, this film. I mean, we sat, we talked, everybody, the whole crew and cast. How was the day? Let's talk. Could we do anything better with our efficiency? And it was great. And that was the one thing, at least Corinne and Mick, our leads, had said that it was so comforting. They just felt like it was a family making this film. That made me happy, Nick and I.
And being able to sort of maintain that soul, even when you'll get into a slightly bigger budget production. I mean, I know it's not Hollywood A-list, massive Warner Brothers style studio films.
Right.
I feel like the disadvantage of some of these major projects is you lose that personal touch. And I think for the actors in particular, that's such a lovely thing to have, that you're working with real people that back you up. Is really great. Hello everyone, Editor Matt just jumping in here to thank you so much for listening to this week's episode in the room with 418 Films. Unfortunately, when Nick rejoined the call, the audio didn't sync up properly, and this was only apparent when I downloaded the files to edit the podcast, and I am now recording this message, which is a real shame, as there were some great things in that second half of that podcast that we won't be able to share with you, but I really do hope you got something from the first half with these two brilliant creatives who I believe are real proof that multi-hyphenate artists are the future of this industry, that these guys have banded together in a duo, that they act, direct, score, edit all of their work. I think it's absolutely amazing, and proof that with enough practice and with the right team around you, you can go ahead by yourself and make some incredible work in this industry. Please do support them on social media, 418 Films. Check out all their work, from their features like Cheat to their short films, their music videos, and look out for future projects with them. Get in touch, show them some support. They are brilliant, brilliant people. Thank you so much for spending some time with us in the room today, and we'll see you all in the next one.